wake up, realize your consciousness. You gotta fucking move, man. You gotta move. No more sitting. No more scrolling on TikTok. Honestly, that's an interesting state of being. Kind of just a droning away on social media. No. Turn it off. Come on. Let's get fucking real. And honestly, when it comes to my training, leg day is the day which I kind of feel the most passionate about, per se, in a sense. Now, what I mean by that is the chest training, of course, I'm going hard, but it's not as visceral, you know? Like when I do my, the arm day that I did yesterday, yeah, it was a good workout. I mean, I was definitely pushing myself hard, but it's not as like fucking primal as doing, well, hamstrings not even so much, mainly just fucking quads. You know, nasty fucking hard quad training. That takes something out of you, and it takes something to even get to that sort of level of intensity, which I know I want to be in, right? Like, to the point where I'll get, I wouldn't say, I mean, yeah, I'd say anxious, but not in like the conventional sense of anxiety. But like if I'm sitting there and there's 5 plates on the incline around the Smith machine, and I'm about to squat it for however many reps, my heart's gonna get fucking beaten. I'm gonna get some adrenaline going. You know, I'm gonna make sure I really got a fucking badass song playing, because I know that sort of the like my mental image of the amount of intensity that I want to fucking reach is really gonna fucking determine how the set goes. When I warm up, because I don't immediately just go from leg extensions into, you know, 5 plates on the Smith machine. I do 1 plate, I do 2 plates, I do 3 plates, I do 4 plates, just a few reps each. But what I'll notice is when I do that last 4 plate set of warming up, where I just do 4 plates for like 2 reps just to get a feel for it, make sure nothing hurts, just getting exposed to the weight. But that 4 plates feels just as heavy as the 5 plates do. But by the time I get to that 5 plate real working the set, then I'm actually hyped up and fucking amped, and I got my music blaring. Whereas, you know, during the warm-up set, just doing 4 plates, even though it's lighter, it kind of feels momentarily heavier, just because, you know, I don't have that excitement factor, you know. And the more sets that you can sort of feel that nervousness for, I think the better. And I say that in a cautionary way. You know, there's definitely a difference between, like, you know, an impending sense of like, all right, I really gotta fucking push on this one, come on. And it gets your heart pumping. You know you're about to push it hard, but it's a weight that you can manage. You know, this is a different state of being than loading up, you know, too much weight on the flat bench, knowing you probably can't do it, and then trying it anyway. That's very different, you know. But that's all I'm trying to say there is my leg days are the ones which, for it to be a really good lift with pressing, if I do a leg day where there's no pressing involved, like if I want to give my lower back a break or, you know, whatever, which it's not usually the case, but sometimes I do want to do like a lighter leg day, then those ones are a little more chill, you know. For me to sit on the leg extension and do like 10 sets to failure, like I'm going hard, but it's not that same freak factor of really having weight on your back, which is something that I'm kind of trying to really prioritize during this bulking phase, is, you know, to do more heavy pressing, because I've done a lot of leg extending in my training history, which I've built some decent quads, but I think I've been missing out on that real heavy pressing stimulus. So that's my logic there. But in terms of what the lift is actually going to look like today, hamstrings is going to be pretty basic like normal. Laying curls, maybe some seated curls, some RDLs as well. I may even want to do like some, it's kind of tricky because the Smith machine is on the opposite side of the gym than the hamstring curls are, because I really love a hamstring superset when I do like hamstring curls just to failure, you know, or just to a point of fatigued enough where I know I've done some work, and then immediately doing lighter RDLs, because now my hamstrings are totally fucking wrecked, And when I do RDLs, I don't need that much weight, so I can only fucking focus on my hamstrings. When I do RDLs too heavy, I start to use my glutes and my lower back, which is not, that's just not what I'm aiming for, you know? I don't need my butt to be any bigger. I don't want my lower back to develop any more size. I just want to thicken up my hamstrings. So I think I might just bring over like a plate on a barbell and do some supersets like that. It's a little bit of a drive, so I haven't drank the pre-workout yet. But when it comes to quads, that's going to be as follows. Probably 2, maybe 3 sets of leg extensions just to start. And those are going to serve 2 purposes. For one, they're just going to be good, you know, working sets. But they are kind of also going to serve a secondary purpose as to warm up my whole sort of knee pressing area, so that when I go do really heavy squats of Smith, machine, hack, whatever, my whole knees just fucking feel better. I don't know if you've ever squatted or tried to do leg pressing or anything after already basically having a pretty good quad pump. But look, ever since I started doing that maybe like 2 years ago, I have not turned back. Because in my mind, I used to think like, okay, I want to start with my heavy shit. I want to start with squats. And then, you know, I would do my set of squats first, and I would load up a ton of weight. But I could tell my knees were a little bit more tender because they weren't really warm yet. Whereas once I started doing some leg extensions first, everything just kind of fucking clicked. Plus, the feeling of pressing when your quads are already pumped is a bit more enjoyable too. It's more of a, well, I guess you just kind of have to do it to see. But a few sets of leg extensions, probably single leg squeezing. Not really going to focus on the weight too much because I know I'm going to do heavy shit. I know I'm about to do some heavy shit with the pressing later in the workout. So after those 3 sets or 2 sets of leg extensions, probably Smith machine squats, potentially some machine hack squats, and then there's a pendulum leg press or a hip press, I guess, that's at this gym that I really like too, so I might want to throw that in the mix as well. But we'll just kind of see. You know, this is just my sort of prediction, but I'm going to actually make the movement decisions based on how everything feels. You know, if my knees today are for whatever reason like extremely fucking tender and sore to the point where I feel like I probably shouldn't even do quads today, you know, then that's what I'll do. I'll just turn it into a fucking hamstring only rest day. But I don't really predict that to be the case. So let's just get started. And before anything, I am gonna sit on the calf raise machine for a little bit, and that's sort of my pre-hamstring curl. I wouldn't even say ritual, but just warm up. Because if you weren't aware, your calves, like your calf muscles, when you get pumped up on your fucking shins, they actually play a bit of a role in, you know, your hamstring activation. So for me, I didn't know this for the longest time, but when I would start my hamstring days with hamstring curls, the backs, you know, kind of the knee pits, the back of my fucking knees would be a little bit tender when I did fucking hamstring curls. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Ever since I started warming up, I'm not talking heavy weight either, just enough to get some blood flowing, a few sets of calves, and then doing hamstring curls, fucking perfect. But let's get started. A set of moderate weight. I'm not talking the stack, I'm talking like half the stack, slow, controlled, squeezing, burnout sort of style set. I think this is going to be a good opener. I might do some heavy nasty ones later, but I'm going to start with kind of a simple set in a way. One more like that. Okay, one more like that, and then I have your nasty one. Oh. Okay. Now let's do a nasty heavy one. Whew. Holy crap. One more like that. Woo. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the biggest contrast of styles of hamstring curls that I do. Light squeezing or kind of heavy and nasty. And in combination, Jesus, man. It's a goddamn dynamic duo over here. Okay. Let's go do some RDLs. I think a set of Smith RDLs will be perfect. Only 2 plates. So the difficulty is really going to be trying to keep my glutes and my lower back from doing the work and only pulling with my hamstrings, which is kind of a fucking trick in and of itself, you know. I didn't do any RDLs for like the first 2 years of lifting because I couldn't get the mind-muscle connection. But that's just something that kind of comes with experience. So the more you try it, eventually you'll get the hang of it. Oh, goodness. Okay. So with these, failure is kind of going to be up to you because, you know, it's, well, what's a good way to describe it? Pretty much, once my hamstrings start to give out, my glutes are going to start to take over. So if I were to try to keep doing like 10 more reps, it's going to be all glutes and like minimal hamstrings. So that's where you kind of have to have the lifter's presence of mind to say, that was enough. Or if you called it too early, you know, call yourself a fucking pussy, go harder the next set. Oh, which I am not immune to. You know, whenever I have a scrappy set, I try my best to come back with a vengeance. But I try even harder not to have a scrappy set in the first place. But let's get one more, and that might be it for hamstrings. Okay. Let's go find an open leg extension. Shift gears into quads. Hamstrings, fully fucking pumped. Honestly, sometimes a little too pumped. Not that I wouldn't want to be, but whenever I do leg extensions right after hamstring curls, sometimes I kind of feel like I'm stretching my hamstring too much when I straighten my leg all the way to do these leg extensions. But before I do any real leg extending work here, I gotta sit here and just get my knees warm. So 60 pounds, I mean basically nothing, but I'm gonna kind of get a feel for, well, just a feel for the weight, and also, you know, get my knees warm a little. Like if I were to try to immediately jump into a working set of like, I'd probably do like 150 or 160 on each leg. So 3 times this weight, which this is comfortable, dude, my knees would be on fire. But I completely fucking eliminate that uncomfortability by warming them up, which is obvious, but just something worth noting, you know? So if your knees or your elbows or your shoulders are a little tense, they're a little tender, I would kind of at least want to hear what you do for your warm-ups. Guys who have really tender elbows on tricep pushdowns, odds are they're probably not just sitting on the cable machine, you know, shoulder height single arm pushdowns with like 10 pounds, just doing like 20 reps first and then gradually increasing weight. You know, they probably just grab it, say, oh, I can do more weight than this. Oh shit, my elbows are fucking hurting. You know, so just little things like that. You don't necessarily have aches and pains all the time. You might just have, you know, unwarmed up fucking tendons and ligaments and shit. So going through the process of getting a little more loose, a little more limber, just some blood flow in the area, you won't regret it. So I'm gonna play around here for a few more minutes, just get warm, gradually increase weight, and then we can do whatever the first working set ends up being. Nothing insanely special, but I've kind of been liking a fancier sort of set as my opening sets of leg extensions, because for one thing, I'm not totally warmed up and like fucking stimulated yet, so I haven't really done any quad work. So what that kind of means for me is sometimes it's a little bit hard to really force myself to keep pushing past that last few reps of failure, because I'm not really fully in the quad zone yet. Not mentally, but kind of like physically. Like my next few sets of leg extensions will feel different than this one does. This is my first actual working set. But my sort of way to get around this potential drop in intensity is, instead of doing a straight set on either side, I like doing 5 reps on one side, then 5 on the other. And in between, each one kind of gets its own little break. So it's sort of like kind of a rest pause sort of thing. Just kind of a different way to go about it, you know, but still basic enough where it's a good set, you know. Like I think your basic volume should look pretty similar to just a straight up, straight working set. 8 to 20 reps is pretty much the sweet spot in my opinion. But if you venture out of those kind of basic like frameworks, nothing wrong with it. You're probably not going to catch me do a 100 rep set of leg extension. I think that's going to be too light. And you're definitely not going to catch me do a 2 rep set of leg extensions. That's way too heavy. But, you know, add some supersets, some drop sets, take yourself to full failure, rest for like 10 seconds, and then try to bust out a few more extra ones. Just little things like that, which kind of up your intensity, and they kind of make the workout more interesting. But no more chatting. Let me get amped up, and then I'm basically going to take 5 reps, 5 reps, 5 reps, 5 reps, as far as I can. And if that gets me into like the 30 rep range for each leg, I'm fine with that. Because I know I'm going to do some hard, heavy, basic work later. So if these end up being a little bit higher volume, that's fine with me. One extra notch of weight. And again, this belt is fucking sweet. Yeah. 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 Hello. There we go. A little heavier, but let's do one or two more. And I'll decide that after I see how good the next set is. Oh, man. All right. I can't hear any of that. I'm getting in the zone. Okay, let's get in the Smith machine. Fuck. Oh my God. Okay. Oh. I'm not sure if I want to try 5 again or drop to 4. Holy crap. Let's decide in a moment. Fuck, I gotta sit down. Let's stick to 5. Yeah, I'm 100%. Secretly saying, I want to talk about with internet stuff. It's different today. But today, a lot of young kids on. I understand all that. But it's like that. I remember I used to be so fast when I was in 7th grade before I started breaking. That's the same I was. So I had Oh. Oh. Now that was proper fucking failure. That's a set that I am fucking 100% proud of. Holy shit. Oh. Let's move on to something else. Oh my God. I think 2 sets with 5 plates may have been a little bit fucking much. To the point where I went to one of the machine hack squats over there, and let's just say it did not feel particularly nice on my entire, let's just say, pressing system as a whole. This is where I think I gotta ease back, because right now I'm not used to heavy volume. I'm used to a few heavy sets, but most of the volume's a little lighter. So transitioning away from that heavy shit, or that instead of heavy pressing, let's just do that same kind of leg extension we did before. And honestly, I might just do one more set and have that be it. Because I know for a fact, 2 leg extension sets hard, plus those 2 sets of Smith squats, and then one more finisher kind of squeezing set of leg extensions. Guess what? That adds up to some quad stimulation. Oh, especially since I know that that second set of Smith squats was my legit max. Like, I'm not joking. When I was talking in the car about how, you know, I want to get real fucking intense and like dirty and crazy with it, that was the kind of set I was talking about. As good as that first set was, I probably had 1 rep for sure, probably 2 left in the tank that I just didn't get out because I was being a fucking baby. So at least on that second set, I kind of redeemed myself with the intensity. But light squeezing, same as the last one with the 5, 5, 5, 5, but this is going to be much slower. Really, the point of this set is just burn out, finish off the pump, and then we can move on to adductors. Adductors and calves. No. I'll still belt in. Which, I am not joking. I want this mandatory in every leg extension manufactured from here on out. That's my gym manufacturer tip, or I guess recommendation. Come on. No. Ugh. 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 Last one. Ugh. Yeah. Ugh. 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 Okay. I think that's enough quads. Let's go see how they look. Pull my pants back on, and then camp out of the adductor machine for a minute. Where'd my phone go? Oh my god. This lighting spot is actually much cooler when it's pitch black outside, because then all I have is down lighting, not some of this natural side lighting at the same time. But that was a badass fucking leg day. The intensity was there, squeezing, badass kind of hold pause reps were there for hamstrings. Fuck man, that's a lift that I want to recreate. Definitely on the intensity side, but it's going to change exercise order and style too. I mean, who knows, maybe next leg day, instead of 2 bananas heavy sets of squats at least, maybe I'll do like fucking, I don't know, 5 sets of more like 225 or something, and focus more so on the kind of the voluminous accrual of damage in the quads. But let's you tell me how these are looking. So this is approaching fully fucking carved up and everything else. As far as I'm concerned, this is being, let's just say this is set up to be a pretty good fucking bulk. If this is how legs look, purely rocking carbs in a pump. Oh. So, nothing else to say there. But legs is not over. I've still got, oh dude, and we're still fucking veiny. All right, Siri enhance, zoom in. Let's get a little vein shot. Oh my god. Oh, nice. No, but legs is not over because I still have adductors and calves, which are not the most insanely intense sets, but pretty goddamn important, you know? Calves, for obvious reasons, we all need some more calf development. Not that it necessarily has a crazy carryover to strength or, come on, we all want bigger calves. But adductors, I'm a fucking adductor fan, not only because it's gonna thicken up my legs from the front, kind of on the inside, so when I stand there and do like this sort of shot, where I try to spread my legs a little bit, if my adductors are well developed, then it's going to make my legs thicker in the middle so I can spread them out a little wider, make them look bigger on the outside, and they're still connected. You know, the lifter has the exact opposite mentality to the 2000s white girl. We're not looking for a thigh gap. I'm looking for, well, just a continuation of meat in between my fucking legs. But it also really stabilizes your pressing. Like me doing those Smith machine squats or barbell or fucking even just leg press, anything. Having a steady, strong activation of your adductors will make pressing feel so much better. And then odds are, if you press hard enough and your adductors aren't really worked, they're not really trained or developed, you could pull them. I've pulled my fucking adductor before, not like an injury, like not like a, you know, bruised and really pulled, like where I had to consider like going to a doctor for surgery or something, but a pull enough where it's really bothering me. And ever since I've been doing adductors on the regular, I never have a fucking problem, you know? So half prevention of future injuries, but also just makes your legs bigger, stronger. I mean, what's not to like? The only downside is you have to sit on the fucking ball crusher machine for like 6 sets at the end of your lift, but it doesn't even require that much fucking intensity. I mean, I'll just sit there, burn out, and I'll be kind of scrolling on Instagram on my phone. You know, I'm not going to do that on leg extensions or hamstring curls or squats, but on smaller, more accessory work like that, it won't demand as much complete 100% attention. At least not for me, because adductors are not necessarily a top priority. My goal with adductors is just to do them and get an adductor pump. But let's go sit over there. I'll just show one set of each. There's not really much to see, but worth doing, I promise. So one thing I will say, if you have not been doing your adductor training, you're not screwed. You do need to start, but probably don't just throw the stack on and call it a day and get started, just because your adductors may be pretty strong, but if you're not used to loading them up in this kind of way, you could just straight up pull your shit. Do the complete opposite of progress, set yourself back, like, depending on how bad it was, maybe months, you know? So ease into it. Even though I've got a strong set of adductors, you're not gonna catch me immediately start throwing the stack around. I'm still gonna kind of ease my way into it. But there we go. So, I mean, not the most fucking lengthy and tedious warm-up, but enough where I know I'm not gonna rip my adductor off on rep number 1. And then you just kind of sit here and burn out, you know, nothing special. Oh. Okay. So I'm just going to sit here, repeat that, get some good activation, get a good adductor pump, then move on to calves in probably 10 or so minutes, depending on how long this takes me. It's 5 or 6 more. All right, so quick little Hosstile supplements update. If you've been keeping up for a while, then you would know that exactly 1 year ago today, just about, was, you know, when we signed our 1-year contract together. And it has been a fucking wild year. I'm talking trips halfway around the world at the Arnold UK, going to Gold's Gym Venice. We've been around, but, you know, kind of internally, we sort of made the decision we're gonna not continue that. But now I know I got a massive crew of, you know, like totally badass fucking bodybuilders, or if I've got some serious questions, I know they're gonna be able to help me out. So that's what's going on over there. But plan for legs, well, now the plan for legs is just not to fucking hurt them anymore. Those 2 sets of squats were really fucking solid, to the point where, well, I don't know. I'm conflicted in a way, right? What's better? What do you think would be better hypertrophy-wise? Would it have been better if I did 4 sets of like 3 plates and a 25? Or was that 2 sets with 5 plates for 10 more or less stimulating? So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Because not that one over the other is going to be insane changes in quad development, but, you know, whenever I do 2 crazy heavy sets like that, there's not necessarily much left in the tank to do any more seriously hard pressing. But it's a little bit tricky for me to say now, because this is only the first, I mean, we're not even 1 week into the real bulk, so I'm kind of still refilling my glycogen stores. So I'll kind of see how my actual lifting endurance changes over probably the next 2 or 3 weeks, you know, because after even just 1 day of a refeed, my strength fucking like went up like that. Not necessarily numbers wise, but more like that first kind of set endurance wise, especially on chest. Like that 365 for 6 plus 2 assisted reps, that was much heavier than I could have gone a week prior when I was fully fucking flat and kind of carb depleted. So that's where, you know, that 1 set, I do kind of want to push myself weight wise and do as much as I can handle. But I'm really trying to make sure my fucking lifter sense is never tingling when I load up a certain amount of weight, because it's literally just counterintuitive. You know, if I load up a certain amount of weight and I do it in a too abrupt of a fashion and I fucking hurt myself, then I just wrecked my gains. I'm not gonna be able to stimulate that muscle for the next like 2 months. So it's kind of a fine line, because in my mind, I feel like if you're really working hard and doing hard, moderately heavy sets, there is always just some small risk of tweakage, and it just comes with the territory of actually pushing yourself to, what is approaching your physical fucking limit. But there are ways to kind of mitigate that risk. If you know that your shoulder feels a little bit funky today, maybe don't try to do 4 plates for your first working set. If you know your forearm's a little bit extra tender, and maybe don't try to curl the 80s. So that's where I'm getting a little bit, I think I'm getting a little bit smarter with the training. But in no way do I want the lighter weight sets, and they're not even light, they're still heavy, but in no way do I want that to correlate with the idea of like I want to drop the training intensity. So whether I wanted to do a 5-plate set of squats on the Smith like today for those 2 sets, or those half stack hamstring curls in the beginning of today's lift, in either case I want to push those sets to fucking failure. And that's just, nothing else really makes sense. Like, apart from maybe if I've got a tweak or I've hurt myself in some way and I've got to back off on the intensity but still get muscular activation. Like, if you hurt your quad or if you hurt your knee and you're in the process of getting back into things, maybe, don't try to max out the leg extension, but ease into it with light weight, of course. But if you're fully capable of a hard, heavy set and you're not going to tweak anything or pull anything, and you know that like you're comfortable with this weight, I can do this fine, I think you got to push it, man, because mass moves mass. As you get bigger, you are going to get stronger, and the weights that you're going to have to use anyway for even just your lighter basic sets are going to increase. Like, when I was more of a beginner, I could do a light squeezing set with the 20s. I can't really do that now. Like, when I was a beginner, I'm talking 165 pounder, I could grab the 20s and do really slow, kind of controlled squeezing reps. And at 15, I was like approaching failure. Now, if I tried to really throw it around, I probably could have got more, of course. But now, if you gave me the fucking 20s, as hard as I could fucking squeeze them, I'd probably be sitting here for a fucking while. So as much as there is a lot of fucking validity to the idea that, like, the weight isn't the primary driver of your gains, and it's all about, your muscular activation, you can't get around the weight portion of things, So as you get bigger, you should be getting stronger, and vice versa. So that's where I think 1 rep PRs have a good sentiment to them, because, it's doing something now which you couldn't do before. That's the fucking definition of fucking progress. Am I wrong? But in kind of a muscle building context, I think the 1 rep max is a little overrated. You're kind of asking for trouble. I think 1 rep is a little bit low. It's just kind of beyond the point of stimulatory action in my mind. So what I mean by that is, if I start my chest day off with a 1 rep max of bench before I start my normal workout, I don't think that 1 rep max set did too much gains wise. All I did was test my current strength, not start trying to build more strength in the future. So that's where I kind of wish the a 10 rep PR would get a little bit more love, because I can get behind a 10 rep weight PR, because that's a weight that I know I can manage. But if I think I'm like just barely at fucking failure at 9, and then I aim for that in a bodybuilding context, in a muscle building context, I think aiming for a 10 rep PR should be what you fucking go for, at least in your early sets of the workouts. And then if you actually do that and you actually push yourself, I don't think you really have to focus so much on progressive overload. Because if every workout, like let's say every chest day, just to keep it simple, you warmed up, you've done your warm-up sets, you're ready, you're exposed to the weight, you did 1 plate for a couple reps, you did 1 plate and a quarter, you did 2 plates for a few. Maybe your working set is going to be like 235, and you've only ever done 235 for 9. So today you feel nice and strong, you did 235 for 1 as a feeler, you're ready, you've got your triceps warm, you did some rotator cuff work, everything's in line. For you to try to maximize your fucking reps and get a PR for 10 reps, do 235 for 10, which you've never done before. For one thing, you got that fucking achievement of hitting a new rep PR, but also that was a really good fucking set, So that's why, well, that's a little bit why you're never going to see me do a 1 rep set of anything, right? That's something I stand pretty strongly against. I used to get those questions a lot more. It's like, Sam, when are you going to do a day where you max out all your lifts? Yeah, that's a highly alternative universe. That's an alternate reality where the Sam lifting journey was powerlifting oriented and not bodybuilding oriented. But plan now, let me try not to freaking rear end this guy while I pull up my macros. But I've eaten a pretty substantial amount. Ooh. Already 3,000 calories for the day, 400 grams of carbs, 100 of fat, and like 80 of protein. Protein a touch low, so I'm going to make sure I have about a pound of ground beef when I get home, which I'm not concerned about. If you have more than 50 grams of protein at once, you're still gonna use it. Now, in terms of bulking consistency, I want these meals to be evenly distributed, but I'm more concerned with that as the bulk progresses. Right now, this first month, I'm not really concerned with, or at least I'm not really too concerned with trying to fucking, make sure I get a meal at 8 o'clock and then 10 o'clock and then noon and then 2 and then 4 and then 6 and then 8 and then go to bed at 10, because I'm not eating that many calories yet. For me to hit the 3,500 that I'm aiming for, that's not too tricky. So I'm not so concerned with making sure the meals are absolutely perfectly allocated throughout the day. But as this bulk continues, that's where I'm going to get a bit more fucking anal about the meal timing and the meal sizes. Because for me to just kind of eat when I'm hungry and eat random amounts of calories throughout the day, no real routine to it, it's not going to be conducive with long-term fucking food consumption, Because what happens is if you don't go about your calorie intake with, a bit of a at least semi-rigid routine, is you're going to find yourself in this category, in this situation, which I have been in far too many times. And that's where you get behind. You catch yourself behind on your calories, and it's a downward spiral, So in my experience, what ends up happening for me, which I'm a bit spoiled with now, I get to put a lot of time into the bodybuilding side of things, basically all my time. But especially in school, what would happen is it's 2 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I've only had 1,000 calories so far, and I'm aiming for 5,000. So I've literally just basically fasted the whole first portion of the day, or, barely had any food. So now I've got to have a ton of food all at once, right at the end of the day. I'm not going to eat 2,000 calories right before I train. I'm going to feel gross. I need at least an hour, more like 2 hours, honestly, would be kind of ideal for me after a big meal before I really feel kind of ready to train and not get any kind of like just stomach discomfort. So, then I end up, all right, I'll have my pre-workout meal, relatively small. Now I'm at 2,500 calories. It's 4 o'clock. I go work out at 6. I don't leave the gym until like 9 because I ended up talking. And then I'm at home. I've got basically 3,000 calories left to eat, and it's already 9:30. So, especially if you're bulking, if you're deep in a bulk, 3,000 calories just off the rip like that, odds are you're probably not just going to be able to slam that. And even if you could, slamming that many calories all at once, even though of course it is all going to be kind of utilized and absorbed, definitely not in the most fucking effective way. But what would end up happening is, I'd eat like 1,500 or 1,500 calories, do whatever I had to do, and then now it's already midnight. I've got to eat some more. I've got to wake up early in the morning. Oh, all right, so stay up extra late, keep eating your food. Now I got to wake up early. I barely got any good sleep. I have now eaten basically all my day's food the day prior, close to when I'm going to bed. So I'm no longer really that hungry for anything in the morning because I basically just ate a huge ass meal a few hours ago. So then I don't end up starting to eat until later. It's just, and you just end up pushing the calories back. Whereas, if you've got a solid 600, 700 calorie breakfast planned, or you've got it like basically already prepped, have that in the morning, have something packed, bring it for a few hours later. Same thing for a few hours later. If you've got a school day, you're a little bit spoiled, right? If you're in my high school demographic, because you get a planned lunch, I guess if you're working too, you got lunch planned. But if you wake up and you have breakfast at 8 and you don't have lunch until like 1, or if you wake up at like 7 and you don't have lunch until like noon, that's a 5-hour window. That is a long amount of time to not have a meal in a bulking context. You know, I'm not a diehard like you need to eat a meal every 2 hours fan, but you know, just looking at how your meals should be kind of sized, 2 to 3 hours is about right. Because if you're not eating a solid like 500-600 calorie meal every 2 to 3 hours, then you're setting yourself up for failure, man. Because where are these calories going to come from, you know? So that's where, if you get a head start on your day, I think you're going to have an easier time. So if I were to have one meal that was extra big compared to all the others as time progresses, and I'm actually like really careful about how much I'm eating at any given time, so I can keep eating for longer and keep growing for longer and making gains for longer, then I'd probably want to have a bigger breakfast, you know? If my meals end up being like 700 calories each-ish, you know, it can fluctuate a little, but let's say they're all around 700, then I might be more inclined to try to do like an 1100, 1200 calorie breakfast just to kind of get the day started, so that if anything kind of unforeseen happens, I'm already kind of ahead of the game, right? Because think about this. Let's say you wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, you start eating, you know, at 9. Your eating window is basically from 9 o'clock until whenever you go to bed. Let's say midnight. You got 9 until midnight. So that's a 15-hour window, right? So if your goal is to eat 4,500 calories in that 15-hour window, you know what that adds up to? Actually, do I know what that adds up to? 15, 4, so 300 calories an hour, right? If your goal is 4,500 calories in that whole day, then you've got to be eating 300 calories per hour on average. So that ends up adding up, you know, about a 600 calorie meal every 3 hours. Actually, no, 7 or 8. No, you get what I'm saying. You know, you've got a ticker throughout the day. Your calories should increase evenly over time. And if you get behind, you know, if it's now halfway through your eating period of the day and you've only had 1,000 calories, you're in the red. You should have eaten more food by now, but you haven't. So that's where I think that was the reddest light I've ever fucking ran in my life. But if, okay, it wasn't that red. It like just turned. But, what the fuck is that I had to say? Just distracting myself. Oh, so if you get halfway through your day of eating and you haven't eaten half of your allocated calories for the day, then you got to get on it quick. Because if you get behind one day and then you say, I need to go to sleep, I'll get back on it tomorrow. I'll actually start hitting my calorie goal tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Maybe 10% of the time happens. Oh, you know what? All right, next week I'm actually going to start bulking up. I'm going to start tracking my macros this week. Oh, okay, give me a couple days. I'm going to start really working on my training. Yeah, maybe 5% of the time that fucking happens. The other 90% of the time, a week passes and the guy's saying the same thing. You know, so I think I make it a little bit daunting in a way. And everybody does when you're kind of a experienced lifter and you know what you're talking about with macros and dieting. Because, I mean, I can fucking sit here and talk for hours about, like, calories and carbs and different meals and fat intake and proteins and amino acids and everything. And it's a lot of information all at once. And for the beginner, that's fucking, like, I don't know anything about this, you know. So that's where, do not be discouraged by the fact that you don't necessarily know what you're doing yet. Because everybody who does, at one point, they didn't. You know, if we rewind the clock fucking 6 years, I didn't know jack shit about diet. You know, my daily diet consisted mainly of like a bag of croutons, like Cheetos, and I don't know, just random food. Not even like for the purpose of like bulking or anything. I had no idea what I was doing. Like looking back at my pre kind of bodybuilding macros, it was like you just grabbed whatever the hell was in the cupboard and fed it to me. right? But over time, when you gradually start looking into it, you're watching different training videos and different guys talking about it and everything, you start to get a little bit more of an idea what's going on. And then that's where I think the fact that newbie gains exist is the fucking best, because what that means is, as a beginner, it doesn't matter if you necessarily know everything, because you're in the most prime state for fucking gains, so don't be concerned, right? The longer that you work out, even if you're not really diligently trying to study kinesiology and food science and everything else, you're going to gradually suck up more information over time, and before you know it, you're going to know everything, right? Just a matter of time. So plan now, go home, eat some steaks and some ground beef, maybe even some eggs, do a little bit of a breakfast for dinner type situation, get a good night's rest, and then I've got chest tomorrow, which I am really it's kind of a it's a little silly for me. Yeah, I'm excited for the training. Kind of a no-brainer there, but I am excited for chest tomorrow. Cardio in the morning and a really good night's rest in between. So I'll see you then.